Uh, let's get started. I need to mute that. Live streaming. Let me change the bit rate, but that's fine. Alright. I'll start it. Learn to see value. Learn values. What are values? That's what I'm here to answer. Not like your personal beliefs or how valuable something is. It's more like assigning a dark and light to a color or a range. So basically 1 to 10 would be a value range, would be different values for how you see in grayscale. It's basically seeing in gray, but it's a little more than just gray. It's also how dark or light a color is as well. So we get kind of like a scale like this, which is a 9, which is actually the same as the background, it looks like, or 90%. We usually have this slider for when we're picking our colors, the hue, saturation, and then brightness or value or tone or how dark or light something is. And this is basically what we're going to be looking at. And if I pull up the slider for just grayscale slider, it's kind of reversed, so it's like 0 to 100. I'm not sure what the K stands for. But you can get a lot with just having 2 values. So for here, I have like a light background and then a dark foreground. But you can see the shadows, and you can tell that this is a mountain with some trees in the front. Is this showing? Yeah, it's showing. So you can tell what's happening here, even with just knowing about that there's just 2 values. It's about 84, or actually I like working it with the other way, so 16 and 89 if we are just looking at 0 to 100. So I have done some studies already where I'm breaking down the different values within the reference, and I have a black and white filter on it, which you actually, if you're using Photoshop, you can go to color proof setup, custom dot 20% dot gang 20%. That will get you the closest to the, that will give you an accurate grayscale reading and seeing it just in the actual colors based on the reference photos you have. But I also made a filter, black and white filter, and then made adjustments to it to get it as close as possible to it. So I might actually drop this Photoshop document in my school later for people to dissect it. But I want to actually get into doing a few examples. Get a layer. Okay. Do we want to do? Where is it? one of these examples. Okay, so I have a few different references here. I think I will actually show one of these. I want to do one of these. I want to do this top right one. Let me click and drag that over here. Okay. I need to make the canvas bigger. So I do want to just look at it in color, because if you're going to study like real life, sometimes it's good just to look at it in color and then paint it in gray. But if you want to check it, you can do the view and filter. I'm not sure how to do that in other software, so the closest you can do is by putting just a black and white filter on it. If not, just do what you can. Another trick that you can use to see value better is to squint and look at it. I'm probably going to get people coming in and then leaving, which is normal. I need to stop looking at the numbers. Okay, so I can see that if you look at it, the background is really close to like this first edge of clouds. And so I'm going to break it down into kind of roughly how dark and light I think things are. I'm going to try and keep it to like 3 to 4 values so I don't go too crazy. So I'm not trying to get every single little shift here. I'm looking for the overall shape. So if I was to draw the shape around this mountain, I'm looking for this shape because that's the closest they are in value range. And then we also have another shape down here, which is the grass. So we're kind of grouping the shapes roughly on their value range, which you're kind of combining some things together. So let's say these clouds are just all in their one zone, even though there is slight variation in that. You want to focus on the overall shapes within it. So if I drew these gaps in the cloud, instead of drawing the clouds themselves, the sky is kind of its own value. And then there's some smaller clouds down there. So just by drawing around the different shapes, you can kind of see, yeah, that's the environment we're looking at. Let me put that on a separate layer. Okay, so I'm looking, basically, I'm going to get the mountain kind of in this range, which is actually darker now that I look at it, so darken that. And then have the grass, which that is pretty darn close to the grass color. So I'm going to draw that. And then the sky, it's probably about, it looks really close to the grass value. But if I squint and look at it, it is definitely a little lighter, so that's not too different. And then the clouds, which is like, their brightness is actually a little brighter than my background. So we have these 4 different values that I'm going to work with. Let me paint in that overall. Let me put these kind of in different spots so I can see. So those are kind of the 4 value ranges that I'm looking for. And we will add more as we go, but this is where I like to start. I'm going to actually add a border around this so we can okay, there we go. A little darker than I want it. So yeah, we'll go with that. Kind of work within there. But oh, now I can't see the values I wrote down. Crud. Okay. This is not working out how I wanted it to. Give me a second while I just draw this frame. Not the most efficient way of making a frame. I honestly should just draw a box around it. Me trying to be fancy. Not paying off. Okay, so we have this dark value. That'll be our darkest value, which will be... Oh, it's still on there. Which will be the mountain. And then we have the grass. This kind of lighter color. And then the clouds are the brightest, which I will turn up a little bit just to get it clear. And then the sky, it's actually darker at the top and lighter at the bottom. And now my headphones are dying, but that's okay. I'm going to pick somewhere. It's a little darker than the, and I can't tell. So here, let me put it on. Yeah, I definitely see they're very different from the top and bottom of the sky, which is normal, and that's how skies typically look. But for now, I want to do something a little lighter than the ground. But not too bright that we can't tell it from the sky or from the clouds. Alright, so that's kind of what I have going on here. So let me finish painting in this shape of the mountain. And then I'm going to try and draw the sky part, or paint in the shape of the sky. And paint kind of the negative space around the clouds. And the clouds, I will go back and paint. Now we kind of have our rough value ranges. Guess what? The dog loves barking when I'm live streaming. He loves to do it. He should quiet down real soon. Alright, I'm going to paint over this border now. Clouds are kind of abstract, so are more abstract than anything because they're kind of all over the place. But I'm also noticing some of this, there's a shadow under the cloud, which is definitely darker. I'm going to just group that in with the sky color I have over here. So you start with like 3 to 4 different values like I have here. Do the view, proof. And now what do we want to do when we add more? So I kind of establish these different groupings. And I don't want to quite make it all the way to the next zone. So let's say this is the mountain and this is kind of the grass. I don't want to have the mountain's lighter parts get be lighter than that. So say this is at a 25 and this is at a 56. I'll probably do something around like a 30, 35, 34. And I'm going to paint in this lighter section. In the mountain. Because I don't want to go, I want it to still be darker than the grass. And sometimes the context will change things and it will be a bit different. But I am seeing a lighter part right there. Zoom in a little bit. Get that shape more in there. You can see there's a variation right here as well. And I think this is even lighter, where the light's hitting it here. And then we have a darker value in front. We're just looking for these different shapes within it. If you want to do this, I would suggest just practicing doing studies like this on your own. And it doesn't have to be landscapes either. That's just what I'm familiar with and what I know. But you could do this with portraits, you could do this with animals, you could do this with really anything. But by doing studies like this, you will start to see patterns or shapes, or see the world and start paying attention. Like, oh, this one's slightly darker than this one, and you start looking at things differently, and you'll start to understand the world a little better. with the sky, I'm actually going to... Well, actually I made it lighter than the ground. Actually, that was intentional because it's close to the clouds. So the sky, I'm actually going to lighten even more at this point. And you just kind of work around in the shapes. Let's see what you see. I see there's another mountain peak here, which I think is really close to this other value right here. So I'm going to paint that in. And it does take time to practice painting like this. At a certain point, like, you don't need to do studies. You can just get into color, but I recommend to learn or paint like this first. Because you're just training your eye to look for the variation in how dark and light it is. You're training one part of your eye at a time. Tell if it's... And sometimes I'm wrong even after plenty of time practicing. It just takes some refining and a little bit of guesswork, but you slowly get there. I would like to build up my own reference catalog too. That would be nice. You can do this with photos you taken, photos other people taken. You can even just look around where you live. There's no mountains near me, so I have to look up reference photos. And I don't really feel like going up. Really feel like going up into the mountains anyways. Okay, my headphones are down. I gotta take them off. God, take them off. I should have charged them before starting. They're noise canceling, so they really help me focus when I need it. And I do need to focus when I'm teaching this. Okay, so there is, like, I started to add... Which value is this? Up here. I started to get a little darker and a little lighter within those mountains. And you kind of slowly add in more values within their general grouping or range. We're just establishing the overall groups and then going in and adding the variation, because there is that within the environment. So let's go in this grassy area and get a little bit darker, which we don't want to go as dark as the light part in the dark mountain. So it has to be lighter than 40. So let's do like 50 for some of these darker patches in here. And some things will be the same value depending on what it is that you're painting. Set my round brush to the hard round pressure size, so it varies on how hard I push. I find that really nice for getting a good control of shapes. Get the mountain. Looks like the lightest part of there. Actually looks close to some of this foreground environment, but it's also a different thing because there's rock showing instead of the trees that it's hitting, so it looks pixelated right here. But then in the clouds, I started to add some darker spots where it's a little darker within that. I'm also trying to paint in the sky. I'm going to show the whole process of it too. If I can help it. Just going to erase this edge so we can see the reference. I'll pull it underneath anyways, so. Zoom in a little bit here. And there's snow on the mountain, so the snow it's obviously white, so it is a lighter value and it will reflect more. So it's going to look brighter. There's not really, it's really tiny reference I have, so it's very pixelated. So I'm just kind of roughly emulating that snowy pattern right there. Looks like it does even get slightly lighter there. Won't go lighter than this grass in here. Because things tend to get lighter further back they go, so that's another thing you notice with value as well. I even see some mountains back there, which are kind of matching the sky color. But then there's also snow on it, which is funny enough since the snow's in shadow. It's actually lighter than the snow, or darker than the other snow we saw earlier. And I'm not going to worry about that because you can barely see that detail anyways. Just paint a little something for it there. Painting these clouds, more of these clouds. I'm not trying to make them perfect clouds. I'm trying to get the overall shape. Repaint the sky down here. Lighter. You start with less values and then add more in. Instead of trying to do every detail at a time. Focus on just getting the value. Did I get any chats? No. Okay. I plan on leaving the VOD up as well. I will trim it some because the beginning I was kind of getting everything set up, so. I'm still struggling. It probably would have helped if I just did a little warm up before, but I'm struggling with this still. Okay, I am seeing some darker spots there. You can reuse some values within some paintings. I'm not going for drawing every blade of grass. I'm just drawing these rough groupings of these darker and lighter areas. And it pretty much we see what we're seeing on a zoomed out scale, and it looks like grass. We don't see every single blade like that. That's not how you would typically paint grass. You're just painting it based on the values that you see in it. So here's the lighter spots too. Even you can start to see kind of this bumpy texture for where the sun's hitting some of the trees. And we can't even see the leaves from here. They're just clusters. So you can kind of paint it a little abstractly. Almost like the clouds. And you can't see them as much the further away it is. So you add even less of that texture. Because that's how our eyes see things anyways. Things are simplified further away. Like even if you zoom in with a camera sometimes, it's going to make things look blurry. That's essentially what's happening with our eyes too. There's some lighter values within here where the rock is showing, but also the light's coming from up here, so it's going to show a light spot where it's poking in through the clouds. So this lighter area, barely any of that actually. It's kind of like a medium in between those two. And just a little bit of light right here. And then it gets dark on the very edge of the tree line. It's not going to look exactly like the reference either. Painting some more clouds in there. I'm just using the hard round brush just to show that you don't need fancy brushes. You can really use any brush you want. Sometimes the mixer brushes I don't recommend to use right away because they can kind of make it hard to control variation. Oh, there's a turkey outside. There's 2 turkeys outside. Wow. That's something you don't see every day. I can't really turn the camera around, otherwise I'd show you. But turkey stream sniping. Some of the textures might help with getting maybe some of a softer edge to a cloud. And just using the abstract shape of a brush can help. But when you're just trying to look for the overall shapes within the value, it doesn't matter. This is pretty much how you paint digitally and traditionally too. You're looking for the shapes, you're looking for the little variations in things. And that's why what value can really teach you, especially when you practice it. Definitely these mountains have the most diverse part of values in it. I think clouds can be tricky to paint with the hard round brush as well. I think this study's looking pretty good. How long have I spent on it? Probably like, I don't know, like 30 minutes. Let's see what time, 2:30. 20 to 30 minutes on it so far. This is the lightest part here because the sun is hitting. Even then, there's still a little texture within there. A lot of the learning really comes down to just practicing more. The concepts are relatively simple for painting. They just take time to practice. They require a lot of time. Some things you will pick up faster, some things you won't. I think when I got to color is when I picked up things pretty fast. But value did take me some time to figure out. Practice more of. The clouds, you don't have to be exact either because they're always moving, they're always changing, so there's not like a definitive shape to a cloud. They tend to be softer around the edges, so like the value shift more subtly to the other ranges. I'm gonna call that my first study for today. I'm probably gonna do at least one more, maybe two more. I have about another half hour for streaming to do, and then we'll see where I go from there. And ask me any questions or anything else. If you want to do this yourself, you can join my school. I think I linked it in the description. I can just drop the link. Wait, where is it? Drop the link on the stream. I will take you to the page. And hopefully I will be doing more lectures like this and maybe redoing some of them because I'm going to get better at explaining them and teaching them. But this is what I know as of right now. All right, which one should we do next? Do you have it pulled up in my, am I lined up with the camera? Oh, whatever. No, I did not want to open that. $32 now. All right, I will do another study. Which one do y'all want me to see me do? I'm gonna do either of these. I'm thinking the top left one. It's a little bit more complicated. What's going on there? I turned off my headphones. Okay, I also like this bottom kind of beachy one. Maybe I can do some studies and people send me them. I'm not sure how to set that up yet, but I'd like to. So far, the stream is going all right. I don't have any, not too many viewers, but I'm meaning to make this live and then people can go back and watch it. If I could do these as more interactive with more people as I get going, I will do more. Okay, so let's do another study. I want to try this more complex looking one. And I will put these ones in a folder. Collapse. And we'll make another one. Look like I did have somebody watching for a little bit. And I appreciate it. I hope this is educational for everyone. If you're watching this as a VOD, leave a comment. See if you... Let me know if you're figuring out this whole concept and if this is making sense. Or if you're learning something. Yeah, let me know. Okay, I'm gonna approach this a little differently. I'm gonna draw out the outline of the shape of the shapes that I'm seeing, and then going back and adding the value. But I'm drawing around where the overall value shifts are. Kind of one here, here, and then shape here, through here. Maybe I will paint in some of the tree shapes. Right now, these trees are the darkest value. And then we have these mountains in the background that are kind of getting covered with clouds. It is an overcast day, so the values are not that contrasty because the light isn't as bright. But this mountain is brighter here than it is here. And typically it gets lighter the further back you go. But since there's more trees and the trees have a darker base value, they're going to look darker. But then the further back you go, they get lighter again. So you observe things like that. The shape here. Alright, I'm going to use a different brush this time. No, I don't like that one. Puppy dog, you need to stop barking. My favorite brushes. No barking! He just wants to be heard. If he keeps it up, I'll have to go get him myself. Bring him in here. Force him to watch my live stream. Do a medium value here. It's lighter. The lightest is the sky. And maybe some of the water down here on the ground. I'm going to add a darker value in for some of these trees, because they vary within that range. Some lighter segments as well. Compositionally, this image isn't the greatest. It does have a nice variation in value in this darker area. Some of these lines up here. I'm not even going to bother like trying to paint the clouds, other than the ones that are kind of in front of these mountains here. They get lighter. Well, maybe I will paint the clouds because they're brighter than my background, but I'm not going to really do a lot of detail on them. Get some rough it in. I'm going to try and paint around water there, but if I look closely, let's do that. Color proof. Okay, so I am reading that right, that the water is lighter than the ground there. Even lighter than the grass. And go back and paint that tree in the front again. Some darker spots in there. Yeah, this is looking kind of muddy to me. Maybe I do need to go back to the hard round brush. So this is definitely a tricky one. It maybe wasn't the best example. But that's kind of the challenge of studies. It's like you're trying to figure it out. This is a more complex scene here. So I want to try and figure out this shape right here. I'm going to draw like a bigger shape here real quick, even though that's not what the light section looks like. And then I'm going to go back in and draw this darker section in here. Sometimes your strategy doesn't quite work. Sometimes it's better to paint in the bigger, broader shapes and then do the smaller ones. It's kind of looking like the reference. I'm getting there slowly. It's a little darker spot here, so I'm going to shift that down slightly. But still following the same idea of start with the general shapes, general value range, and then kind of refine it from within there. Helps you simplify and organize the chaos a lot easier. And then once you see this, think of it this way in shapes and how relatively dark and light things are to each other. You'll start to be like, okay, color will make a lot more sense, or will be easier to replicate. Because colors vary in their values as well. I don't know how I added this shape in here. It's not there, but I kind of want to leave it. And sometimes things just emerge by accident, happy accidents. As Bob Ross would say. And they just work out. They're just a pleasing pattern that you accidentally end up with. I know we're trying to replicate their reference the best we can, but sometimes things like that happen. Okay, now here's another tricky part, is this grassy section up top. And it is definitely darker than the water down there, but some of these rocks have a darker range to them as well. So they're darker than the water, but they're lighter than the rock. And then there's some of this plant or shrub here, which is actually kind of a darker range right here. Try something like that. And a darker spot here. Texture brush could help a little bit with some of the edges, but it doesn't matter too much. If you're just painting with traditional media, you're going to have that rough edge to it, which you can give it kind of this texture to kind of be like, okay, there's kind of a grassy softness to it. But I'm not working on edges so much today. There's trees out here. And since it's kind of overcast, more things are true to their base color because there's no direct sunlight augmenting it. So the trees are all going to kind of be the same range, even if they're kind of a little bit away from you. I need to swap these values. Make this darker. And then this part lighter. Some trees there. I haven't drawn in this big tree right here yet because I'm trying to get this overall shape here done. It's really hard to say how many you should do. I just say do as many as you can. Maybe just pick a number for your goal. Be like, okay, 5. I'm going to try and do 5 of these, or 10. I sometimes just like to pick a number. You can be a little ambitious with it, but I don't like to get carried away when I'm like, I'm going to learn this new thing and I'm going to do 100 of them, which is a good goal, but you have to be patient with yourself if you're going to do that. So I would say for these, I just set a goal of doing 10 of them in a week. especially if you don't do a lot of painting and you're trying to learn. 10's probably a good start. But if you like to paint a lot and you haven't really like learned the fundamentals, this is a really good thing to start with. Do 10 of them, do 20 of them. Like, honestly, do as many as you can until you feel like you're doing them pretty easily, and then it's time to move on to something else to challenge yourself. Unless you're just happy with doing gray paintings, which is nice sometimes. Okay, let's paint in this tree here. It's kind of touching that tree, that group of tree and the trees in the background, but I'm gonna paint over it just a little bit. Actually, I'm just gonna make it even bigger because I don't like having a lot of like tangents and stuff. I might even get rid of that clump of trees back there, just so we can have like a nicer looking composition within here. Yeah, I don't like that, so we'll do that. That's more advanced things that I'm doing, but sometimes with your studies, if you just want them to look nice, make a few changes here and there just to make them a little nicer. But when I first started, when I first started doing these studies, I was kind of a mess. I went all the way black. I went all the way white. Generally, I notice you go more all the way white than you do all the way black. You basically never go all the way black. I mean, you could do just black and white studies where it's just like, okay, what's in the top half of it is the lightest, and what is in the bottom half that's the darkest, and that can be a good exercise to do, and you can learn a lot from that. But typically, you barely ever go completely black. Do make this just a little lighter so we can make us think that's a little further away as well. Okay, this study is going a lot easier than I thought it would. It's just kind of this river area is a very complex because there's a lot going on in it. But I'm not drawing every detail, I'm just kind of simplifying, roughly getting the shapes in there. Try a different brush to get some different shapes here. If you want to do these and get some feedback on them, consider joining my school. Put a link in the description. So if you want to check that out, feel free to do that. And you can post your things, and it's a community of people that will there's a community of people that will help you out, including me. I would like to get it large enough that I can do like basically a monthly critique session and just put that out on YouTube, or a private one. Depends on what people want. Like if they're okay putting it out, that'd be great, because then I can show it to other people that might want it and grow that community that way. Noticing there's like a little flower here. I'm just gonna paint kind of a lighter But that's about as far as I want to push that study here. Get a drink of water. Sounds like a thunderstorm coming in. Take a quick break. Yeah, if you found this stream helpful or what I'm doing helpful, hit the like button. I would appreciate that. It'll tell me if I'm doing a good job or not, or if I need to improve. And if there's any questions or stuff you want to see done, feel free to chat in the comment or chat or leave comments if you're watching this. If you're not watching this live. I do plan on doing a follow-up video at some point for this. I don't know when it will be. I might do a couple more presentations like this until I feel like I nailed the information. Now I want to pick another reference. Okay, we've done these top two. Could do this kind of coastal one. I've already painted this one on the right, which is, yeah, like that. And that one is cool. The water was a little tricky to get just right. And still, like, the water is tricky because there's so many different little wrinkles and stuff for light to be reflected off, or there's like crevices in there that make little darker areas and stuff like that. So what should we do next? Wow, it got really dark in here. Here's my light remote. Let's turn that on, make it a little less dreary. Turn that on. There, that's much cozier. So, which one do you want to see me do next? Taking like a little break, give my hand a rest. I think this coastal one is probably what I'll do. But I am happy to do some other ones. I do want to be able to get like people to submit references as well and then have me paint them. That would be kind of a fun little community project. I'm not sure how you would send them to me. They could be through my community. Stuff like that. Okay. Well, I guess I will be doing this coastal one. Let me get a folder, put those in there. Trying to see how I would break this down. Seeing at least 3 to 4 values in here. See where the sun's coming through is the lightest part. And then the next lightest part is kind of this where the water's reflecting. And then this wave is kind of similar to the same value as the clouds. And then the water kind of to the left is a little bit darker than the clouds, and then the ground and rocks are the darkest areas, but then I noticed that there's some sand and beach which is very similar to value of the waves, or this reflective part of the waves. And that's kind of what I'm seeing from looking at it. Wow, it's coming down out there. I didn't think it was supposed to rain today. Well, yeah. Let's do this. Let's do this. Get a mouthful of water. I feel the masculinity just get sucked right out of my body from drinking out of a straw. Okay, let me start with the light. I'm gonna actually draw a box around here just to make it easier to work within. I think if I was painting this traditionally, I would be taping it up. Okay, so I want to start with the brightest area, which I want brighter than the background, but I don't want to go pure white, so like 95, 96 range on this 1 to 100 scale. Guess it would be more like a 9. You know what? Actually, I'm going to work in the, can't really see that. So I want to actually start with the darkest. I want to work from 1 to 10, so like I'll do 10%, 20%, and so on. So I will start at, I can't get it exactly, I will type it in. Okay, we'll start with the darkest area. I was gonna do light to dark, but I think the darkest area makes sense. It's kind of coast area. But it does kind of get like dark over here, but not as dark, so paint here. Kind of roughly getting those rock shapes. I'm not trying to get it perfect, because then you just waste a bunch of time making something that's not going to look very good. Better just do the rough ends of it. So yeah, I want to work from dark to light. That typically is a good way to work, because usually your canvas is lighter. Anyways, I'm not sure how what process oil painting would be. You do the light. I think you do the highlights at the very end for that as well. But watercolor, you kind of have to work lighter and darken it as you go. Okay, now kind of have this rocky shore, some of this land in place, and now what's the next darkest section? And I will do that at about 30? No, 40? 39 is close enough. Let's see how close is that. Yep, that's pretty good. That's kind of the water in the distance. Actually might be lighter, but I'm gonna start with that. There's some land behind here that's a little lighter. Go back and grab the darker value as well. Paint that in. The current canvas brightness as the sky for now. And then these clouds up here, which I will rough in the shape around it. There's still some value variation within there. Oops, I went a little lighter. Keep it in the 40 range. It's definitely lighter at this bottom of these clouds. Hear that tapping? Wow, that's noisy. I don't, that's just how the pipes are in the house. Back to painting. Next lightest value. Next darkest. Or then working from dark to light. So it's the next, I don't know, light, dark. The next lightest dark. I don't know. It gets confusing. Okay, I'm gonna do another, go up to like 60. Work on that. Do this wave. Yeah, it's definitely this wave section here. Work on that. The water in here. Definitely darker. It kind of matches the beach, sandy beach area. And then it gets lighter again right here. Even these clouds in the background are about that same value range as well. It's a little lighter. Some of that mixed in here too. Definitely this cloud is not as dark. Even along the edges of some of those darker clouds, it's kind of close to that. We'll go to like 80. That sky area. Definitely like the full on brightness right here in the middle. So I'm just going to paint that in because it's pretty obvious where that is. Some smaller brush marks here. It's looking pretty good working from light to dark. I'll put in some of these 90. Around 90 will be the water reflective part. Some of this beachy part here and a little darker part to the wave here. More of that wave Or that wavy part. Honestly, that's looking really good. I think it does help to put like an order to how you're working. It's like, okay, gonna move darker, but at some point you just start working kind of all over. It's like, okay, here's this shape over here that needs a little bit more work. And you get it closer and closer to the reference. So kind of a lightish color around the ridge of that mountain. I don't know if it's a mountain, but the coastline. Lightly paint in some brighter. This brush kind of has some what of a soft edge, so I think it does help with painting the clouds. I think a round, soft round might do okay for getting the edges, but I think I prefer having just a little bit of texture for my clouds. Or I can just turn the opacity down on the round brush. They have like a slower transition, a softer edge. Maybe I'll talk about different edges on a future stream. That's kind of like the next thing to learn. It's not really a fundamental, but it does help. Maybe it is considered a fundamental. I don't know. Edge control. This cloud's a little bit darker. It's more painting a little bit more rock shapes in here. It's like some dark at the very bottom of the wave where it's kind of casting a shadow, or that ambient occlusion, I guess. It's kind of like bumpy here. So there's definitely like a variation in the texture. So the value will vary there to get more of a textural, more of a texture shape to it. So lightness here. I think the best way to learn to appreciate art is to learn it, make it yourself, because then you know what goes into it, or what you can't do and what other people can do, and it's like, okay, I appreciate that. Or you get mad because you want to be able to do what they can do, and that's not usually worth it. It's never worth it. usually like, I want to be that good. It's kind of the healthiest way of looking at it. This is probably going to be my last demo because I need a break and I haven't had lunch yet, so. How that does. And since I'm working so small, it's going to be harder to get some of the details. And a little more variation in the clouds here. Definitely one of the more complex ones that I'm doing. I'm almost done here. Honestly, I could probably just keep working on these for a few hours until I get it just right. I think that captures it pretty good. For the most part. Oh, excuse me. Yep, I've been live for about an hour and a half. Let me review what we did. Oh, and then there's even more, like where you can start making up your own value sketches and studies. Well, maybe they're not really studies, but more like trying to apply what you learned. It's not a great example. So value can be arranged like from 1 to 10 if you want to simplify it. I like to work from 2 to 4 different values and then refine them within that or keep them grouped together. So values are basically this slide, the black to white slider, the grayscale, or tone, some people will call it. Tonal values. Tonal values make sense putting that together. I don't know why value became the word for it. So if you find like tones or grayscale better, that's okay. You can do that. I just know it's typically called value, and that's what I learned it to be called. It's basically seeing in grayscale. And then we did some studies. Here's the first one we did. So I broke down, we had the mountains, which is the darkest part, and then the grass was a little lighter, and then the sky was even lighter, and then the clouds were the lightest, and we had like 4 different ranges in there. And they varied, and they slightly adjusted from where they were at. And that's kind of what you have to do when you're doing the studies. And you're training your eye to see the different values, either grouped or the very finer details of them. But you want to look mostly at the larger shapes and the overall picture of it. And let me close this one. Then here's the second study we did. A little bit more overcast, a little more complexity happening in the midground. With the I struggled with this part, to be completely fair and honest. I struggled with this part, and there's some issues here. And then I made this tree bigger just to kind of add a little more depth to the composition. Clouds in the background. Yeah, this one I'm not too pleased with, but it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Then we had this one where I worked from dark to light. I was going to work from light to dark, but it didn't make sense for the context of this. And the shapes aren't exactly here in the foreground. But if you zoom out enough, like I have this navigator in the corner here, they look very similar, and I captured the values pretty good, I would say. Oh, oops. Excuse me. So, that is value and some studies. I recommend doing as many as you can. I will try and put together some sort of like photos, or actually I'll just put this Photoshop file of all these studies up on my school. If you want to grab them, they won't be up right away, but I will get them up there as soon. I'll try and get them up there today or tomorrow, so people can grab them, look at them, maybe make their own layer, do their own studies of them. I can post them in JPEGs as well. But that is what I have to say for my live stream on value. Hopefully we can do more studies, or I'll have more topics to come up in the future, and maybe make a video on value. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.